Hello, I'm Connor Kukanova, and I've been a game developer for the last 3 years, and a game development-based technology teacher for the last year. I started out with a focus on art and animation, but slowly I've become more interested in the code and systems that actually make games move and work. I've spent the last year teaching students how to make games, and now I've been afforded the opportunity to make one of my dream games. And let me introduce you to what that is and what I've been working on since May 2021. This is Space's Aces. Without revealing too much, it's a multiplayer spaceship team fighter with unique characters, abilities, and ships. Players need to carefully select their characters and ships and then work together to complete objectives. The plan is to release this as a multiplayer game for free on itch.io sometime in mid-2022. I've decided to present my journey to completing this game in a series of devlogs to document the process and to hopefully help inspire you to make your own games. I'm inspired a lot by Sebastian Log, Thin Matrix, and Pixel Architect. You should check out their work, it's really cool. So let's take a look at Space's Aces and where it is right now. So this is Space's Aces. It has menus, music, mechanics, you know, stuff you'd expect to find in a game. Let me show you what that actually comes to looking like. And here's some basic UI and a little bit of a UI error, just to show you how things sometimes don't work perfectly. Private games, create a room. This game actually has the capability of connecting online right now through photons. I'll select the asteroid mine level, the attack game mode, so I'll just be doing a deathmatch. And I'll enter the room name. Big Billy's Great Adventure. And you'll see it displays all my info correctly. Actually, max players should display as 1. And now I can hit Start Game. And this brings me to a basic character select screen. And I can pick my character before jumping into the game. And I'll pick Amelie Skyheart because I view her almost as the face right now. She has an interesting backstory. And we have the good old Tri-Speeder and the Angelfish right now. And I'll go ahead and select the good old Tri-Speeder because I have an attachment to it as the first ship added to the game. And here we are in the game. Flying, I can look around with my camera, check out the scenery, I can look inside my cockpit and see all the blinking lights and the flight stick and the UI. You'll see as I increase my speed, the green dial right here will also increase. To make the ships move and fire and shoot missiles and do everything correctly, there are 7 scripts working together right now to get everything that you see on screen that I'm doing, even the UI. And now I can switch my targeting mode to target the enemy team, and you'll see them appear on screen. This is controlled in the weapons controller. What the system will do is it'll find all the enemies in the game at the start of the game, or when one joins, it'll re-find them, and then it will simply check if they're visible on my camera, and if they are, it'll draw a raycast to them to make sure that they're not obstructed by anything. And if they're not, then I can start targeting them. You'll see on the left, Amelie over there is blinking. That means that's the current target I'm seeking. I can also left-click on my controller to then lock the camera to Amelie over there. If I press up on the D-pad, I'll switch my selection to another potential target. It shows Black Star. I'm working on making this only select targets that are directly in front of you. That's not so perfect yet. But you'll see, I can swap between selections. It currently won't try to select anyone that isn't visible. Now, Bobby is in front of me. If I move my camera, or if I move my ship, you'll see it stops targeting. As long as Bobby is in front of my ship, I can start targeting with missiles. And here's what the missiles look like as they chase down our target, who's on the other side of the wall that I can't pass. That happens because the wall doesn't know how to detect AI yet. It only knows how to detect players like myself. You'll see the project is still very early, but there's a lot already in it, and I'm excited to finish it. Something else I haven't showed yet is if I click in the right control stick, I'll switch camera modes to third person, where I can now look around my ship as I fly. I can also still lock onto targets from this view. You'll also notice I have guns that are shooting from 2 different spots on my ship. The weapons controller is designed in a way that you can add in as many shooting points, and it will automatically find them. When I code things like that into a game, I design a lot of them with artists in mind. I don't want my artists to have to go into my code. Even though if they did, I also want them to be able to read it. I also don't like that artists have to read my code. So I try to keep it so that they don't. So many things in this game fill in automatically whenever you put them together. If you want to pick a sprite to display speed, all you have to do is drag in that sprite into a list, and then place it on the ship where you want it. It will automatically display the speed. Allow me to show you how some of this code actually works. If I go into my code, you'll see I have an input handler script. This simply retrieves our inputs from the input system up here. So when I press a button on my controller or keyboard, whatever I have assigned, it tells my spacecraft controller what to do. So this is my spacecraft controller. This stores most of all the information about the ships, how they work. Example, whenever you select a player and a ship in the player and ship select screens, it applies it to this controller. Then when you spawn in, it adds up all the values, all the passive values with the ship values, and turns them into your current stats. It also initializes all our other scripts that make all this stuff work together. It will initialize our camera controller, our Hud controller, our weapon system, and it gets all of these from our ship prefab. That way, once again, artists can just slap all these details onto the ships and they will automatically work with the player, without them having to open up any of my code. The main purpose of the spacecraft controller on its own is to control how the ship moves. It just happens to also be the piece that initializes all the other scripts, and sends them the needed info, such as current speed, so that they can say display our UI's current speed. If I go to the HUD controller, you'll see this is what controls our UI. And it has data for current speed, and it gets that from our current craft, which is our spacecraft controller. And then we simply fill our speed, and we can add in our sprites to a list, rather than having just one individual sprite, so that all sprites labeled speed can display our current speed. That way I can have a center UI element that displays our current speed, and I can have a UI element inside of the ship that displays our current speed. Here I also have the weapons controller, a very important class. This one handles all of the checking who's on screen, who is targetable, and then targeting them, and it handles the firing of the gun and the firing of the missiles. Missiles have a missile behavior script that control how they move. I may separate this to have a class they inherit from that would be missile behavior, and then each missile can behave in its own unique way. That way I can control better different types of weapons. I do this already with the ability system, but that is a newer system, and I've learned a lot more about code since creating the old missile behavior system. You'll see right here we generate our indicators. This usually happens at the beginning of a round, or it happens when a new player joins the game, because we'll need a new indicator for that player, and we want to make sure they're all in the list in the correct orders. It also applies a name for debugging purposes so that I know what I'm looking at, so it doesn't just say game object. Then we get to position our indicators. So the first thing that happens is our indicators are set inactive. That way they're not visible. Then our position indicator goes through a series of checks to make sure it can draw an indicator over the target and move it with the target. This all runs on late update so that it happens at the end of the frame after you have already moved your ship, so everything adds up accurately. The way I do a lot of what I do here is with for loops. So you'll see what happens is I have my list of active indicators, and I'm going to loop through each one and run a series of checks. First, I'll check, is the indicator or is the target active? The target would be inactive if it were destroyed by a missile or some other thing. It would be waiting for respawn. Then we also check or if our target is visible on the camera. This, I learned recently, actually checks for every camera in the game, but there should only be one active camera at a time, so it shouldn't be an issue. So it runs these checks, and it says if these are not true, then we're going to go ahead and set that indicator false, and we'll go and loop the next loop. If we pass that, then we draw a ray cast. Well, we actually draw a sphere cast. If our sphere cast does not hit anything, then we'll set our indicator false and loop again. Then if our ray cast hits something but it doesn't have a rigid body, then we set false and loop again. And if it does hit that, then we say, okay, now if this rigid body's game object is the player that we're trying to target, we'll set our indicator true, active, and then if our current target is less than 1, which happens if no targets are selected, then we'll set our current target to 1. To 1? Shouldn't this be I? Then we'll set our current target to I, which I just changed because I don't know why it was set to 1. If our rigid body is not the game object we're looking for, then that indicator is going to be false because that means that the object is obstructed by an asteroid or something else, and we'll start the loop over. But if we do activate our indicator, then we're going to need to tell that indicator where on the screen to position itself. So we get our screen position here. That's about all I'm going to walk through for right now, as I need to get back to work. One of my next goals is to start creating the level and getting the visuals in for that. As we now have a couple of ships and a couple of characters, we need a good place to play in. And this level will help me create the game mode system so that can be ready, so we can calculate points and score and give everyone XP and all that kind of fun stuff that makes a game feel more like a game. Before I go, another fun thing is the training mode, which only has one option currently, but if I open up basic flight training, you'll see my game will start in a few minutes, or a few seconds, and then I can go and select Bucky Blazar and ignore the uninitialized background, the angelfish, and hit confirm, and immediately explode for some reason. Why did that happen? Is there something in place? You'll see the WI. WI means I was working in this level, and I had a ship in there, and I forgot to turn it off. Oh, look at this, look at this. I found out what it was. So, I had saved a prefab featuring some basic things, and this one, for some reason, has 2 in it. 2 game action handlers that run the close select screen action, which means it spawns in 2 characters at the same time. So if I hit play now, which starts us in offline mode, because I didn't connect to a server obviously, and hit play, now we'll see it works fine. And I can fly through my test scene and run into walls A-okay. I'll also pick a different character, Bucky Blazar, and we'll see how this goes. If I hit confirm, now I'm flying Bucky Blazar in the angelfish. You'll see how different ships will all have different cockpits too. Fly sideways, fit under here, because the angelfish is built a little bit different. Makes for some fun flying though. Control your speed and really know where you're flying. Here's a little bug for you. This camera is tied to my mouse and does not calculate correctly, so it does not look right. But if I use the stick on my controller, perfectly fine. No issues here. Thank you so much for watching. I know I haven't made a video in a very, very long time, But that doesn't mean I haven't been wanting to. I've just been learning a lot and doing a lot, and then I get caught up in my own way and forget I can just do it. Nothing's stopping me. I don't have to hold myself to some insane quality for the videos. The content is cool enough on its own. So anyway, if you're glad to see me back, tell your friends, tell your buddies. If you're interested in the Devlog stuff, join one of the servers I'm in Discord. There's one called Friendly 3D where I often share some game development stuff, but I don't go super in-depth. However, if you were to ask, I absolutely would explain everything I'm doing, share my code. It's so much. So if that interests you, head over to Friendly 3D, it should be in my description. Follow me on Twitter, I share a lot more over there as well. That's it, glad to be back. I'll see you next time.